Hello. In today's video, I'll be going over the Thor, which is the first tier 10 tech tree battleship for the European tree. I'll be discussing in today's video its strengths, its weaknesses, and the best ways to play and to counter it, and what I think about the ship overall. So let's get started. First, let's cover the strength and weaknesses of the Thor. The Thor has a concealment of 11.8 kilometers, which is one of the best out of the tier 10 battleships. It has a 33 knot base speed, and with the flag, brisk, and its 25% engine boost, it goes up to about 44 knots, which is really fast. One of the fastest battleships in the game. It does have 15 kilometer torpedoes, and you have 8 of them on each side. The torpedoes on the Thor actually do some pretty decent damage. They do 17,500, have a 70 knot speed, and have a detectability of 1.5 kilometers. So the torpedoes are pretty decent besides the detectability range on them. They're pretty nice with a 97-second reload when you build into them, which is a nice reload for how many torpedoes that you have. Another strength of this ship is its armor. It does have a 32mm bow, 32mm aft, with a 40mm deck and a 350mm side plating for the Citadel. For the Citadel itself, it is at water level, so do be careful when showing your side because you will be taking a lot of Citadel damage if you are not careful. Also, where the torpedo tubes are at, the casemates armor bends in, and it's a little bit lower than the rest of the armor, so it's just a giant AP catchers wherever those torpedo tubes are at. So be careful when you're trying to launch your torpedoes because they don't have the best angles. Because if you are spotted and you're launching those torpedoes, they can definitely do a lot of AP damage in those areas. Moving on from that, let's talk about the guns. You do have 9 406mm guns with a 25-second reload. The shell speed's pretty good on this ship with a 900 meters per second, some of the fastest shells in the game for battleships. And the gun range is also pretty decent with 21.7 kilometers, which feels a little bit too much for how this ship is supposed to be played. For the AP, you get 13,600 damage for the AP, which is pretty good for the tier. The HE, though, isn't as good with 5,700 damage with a 37% fire chance, so you'll mostly just be using AP on the Thor. For the accuracy, the dispersion is 258, which is okay, but the Sigma is definitely where it's low. It's just not very good. As you'll be seeing in today's video, the shells go pretty much everywhere, and sometimes you get good salvos, but most of the time you're not going to get super decent salvos, and that's why they buffed the reload to 25 seconds, which originally was 30, but they buffed it to 25, because yeah, you're just trying to throw out as many shells as possible on this thing to hit something. So I can see why they gave it a buff right before release. For the gun angles, when it's bowing and aft, the bowing gun angles are pretty decent, same with the aft. You do have to be careful, though, not to show too much side when you're angling, because if you do, you're going to be taking a lot of damage, so definitely be careful of that when you are angling, when you're using all 3 of the turrets. For the turret traverse itself on the Thor, it's pretty slow for the turret traverse, so you do really need to be careful of having to rotate your guns like off of one side or the other, because you'll be spending a lot of your time rotating your guns if you don't pre-plan how you're doing your turns. So be mentally prepared for that whenever you are using this ship, because you'll be seeing that a lot in today's video where I'm having to rotate my guns, where I have to do a lot of these emergency turns, and it just makes it where I'm not able to use all my guns all the time, which makes it where I'm just doing a lot less damage. Another thing which isn't as decent on this ship is the HP. The HP is 76,000, which is very low for a tier 10 battleship, but that only enforces this ship's playstyle, which I'll be talking about in a moment. Now, for the anti-air, you do get pretty good anti-air. You get 6 kilometer anti-air with 14 flak rounds for the anti-air. And it goes from 6 kilometers to 3.5, so they have a pretty long range of being able to hit with those flak clouds. For the damage itself, the anti-air is pretty decent all over the place. 419 at long range and 508 at mid-range. The mid-range starts at 4 kilometers. So this thing actually is a really strong anti-air platform against any CVs that try to attack you. So if you're wanting to build into anti-air, you can, but I don't recommend it. If you want to, you can, but it's up to you on if you want to do that. But the anti-air is actually really decent. One of the best in the game base. You don't get DFA like the Vermont, so the Vermont does get better anti-air, but I think this ship's going to have the second strongest anti-air in the game for Battleship. For the ASW, you do get the standard 11-kilometer range ASW, so nothing special there. So moving on, let's talk about the consumables. So this ship has a standard DCP with a 15-second action time and a 76-second cooldown, so nothing special there. The heal's also normal as well, so nothing really to talk about there. It does get a radar, and it gets the first 10-kilometer radar in the game for a battleship. The first one, with a 30-second action time and a 114-second cooldown. So really strong radar for the Thor. For the emergency engine power, which is engine boost, it gives you a 25% engine boost. Now, this has a fixed amount of time. It is toggleable, like the other toggleable consumables we've seen before. You can turn it off and you can turn it off. So you can have it on for a minimum of 15 seconds. So no matter what, you have to have it on for at least 15 seconds, which means that with a total of 135-second action time, that means that you have a total of 9 uses, like minimum. Sorry, maximum is the total. Maximum of 9 times. So you have to be very careful when you're using it, because you don't want to overuse it or keep it on too long, so you get as many uses out of it as possible. And it does have a 28-second cooldown in between uses. So when you activate it, it goes for 15 seconds, you can turn it off, and then has a cooldown of 28 seconds. I feel like the emergency engine power boost is really good when it's paired with Brisk. It allows you to go to about 44 something knots. I really like using that combination to zoom around or rotate more if I need to, or trying to get my torpedoes off. It's also good if you got a little bit too aggro and need to turn out. It's also good if you're trying to do a drive-by at an island where if someone's on the other side of the island, you have your torpedoes ready. That also does a good role there as well. Now that we've covered the strength and weaknesses of the Thor, let's talk about the playstyle of the Thor. So going off of it having great concealment, great maneuverability, great torpedoes and anti-air, an okay-ish guns and survivability. Going off of all that kind of play style, it makes it more of a passive kind of battleship player, right? You have to use your concealment to your advantage. You can't be opening up all the time in front of HE farmers. Like, if you're really far away, then sure, that's okay, but you cannot be close just taking heavy damage all the time, okay? You're more of a glass cannon more than an actual tank. So you have to use your concealment to your advantage. Early off, you can use your engine boost, toggling it on and off, as well as using Brisk to be able to maneuver to a flank to get your torpedoes off on the torpedo lanes, like on the 10 line or the 1 line, depending upon the map. Those do really well with those torpedoes, and they also do a lot of damage and get floods as well, which helps your team be able to burn out enemies. So that's the kind of the playstyle I see. Using your AP like closer when if you see any broadsides, that also does really well as well. So getting those sneak shots in with your great concealment, kind of like how the Incomparable does it. Like, you're not going to get any, you know, giant citadel damages, but you'll definitely do a lot of damage with those APs. When you're within about 14, 15 kilometers, you'll do pretty well with the AP. But HE, if you want to use it like really long distance, then you can just to start fires. But other than that, you really don't want to be using HE on the Thor. You want to be focusing on your AP, focusing on your torpedoes, and focusing on not letting yourself get farmed all the time, and using your toggleable engine boost when it's right, because if you're not careful, you're just going to run through all of them, and then you're going to be a sitting duck. Even though you are fast, that engine boost does make you go about 44 knots, which is really fast, and it does help you a lot. And one thing to know about this ship as well is that the fact that it doesn't have the best turret traverse does punish you a lot. So the fact that you have to turn a lot to get those torpedoes off of each side with that 90-something second reload, you do need to pre-turn your guns, or you're not going to be using your guns that much at all on this ship, which is something you'll be seeing a lot of issues with in these matches you'll be watching, because I'll be fighting like a Bremen or something else that's able to farm me really well. I'm being perma-spotted by a gearing, and I'm consistently having to turn over and over again, trying to get my torpedoes off and trying to be able to use my guns. It just isn't that much fun. So learn from my mistakes in this video, and just pre-aim your guns off of one side or the other where you plan on being the most, and you'll do really well. And that'll be in the second match. The first match, I tried to showcase both a being aggressive and then being more passive kind of match. It's kind of hard to predict how matches are going to be going, but I wanted to make sure that I showcase both when you're being aggressive or pushing, and then when you're kiting or helping to slow down an enemy push in these matches. So you guys get to see both of those today. Now, after these matches are done, I also have timestamps in today's video, so you can go and look at the build at the end of the video as well. That will help you guys out. So I'll be showcasing the armor as well as the build itself. But going off of the play style, you're going to be wanting to more, depending upon the map, right? I'll just talk about like map positioning. So going off of like maps, right? So if you spawn middle, a lot of the time you want to angle yourself to where you're in between both caps, being able to launch torpedoes toward the cap. Since you have 15-kilometer range torpedoes, you can put a lot of pressure on those capping destroyers if you're able to, and do a lot of damage there, or get a potential destroyer kill with just how much damage those torpedoes do. So something really perspective there. Now, if you spawn on the left side or the right side of the map and you have those torpedo lanes, definitely make sure to flood those, either flooding the edges of the map where you know a destroyer may be going, or putting the torpedoes into the cap, depending upon where your destroyer goes. Those are really well as well. Being careful of submarines and aircraft carriers, because again, since this is more of a stealth battleship, you don't want to be spotted all the time. So if you are in a match where you see an aircraft carrier, just be a little bit more passive, be a little bit further back. If you see he's not focused in the area at first, you can go in, use that engine boost to get in, and then turn it off and then turn out. And then if he comes back, just have your anti-air just shred his planes, because you do a lot of damage to planes. And if he's unlucky enough to eat all your flak, then yeah, he's going to be losing the entire squad, which is hilarious to watch. It is pretty cool that they're adding in battleships that actually have good anti-air. I wish it had DFAA. If it had DFAA, it would have the strongest anti-air for battleships in the game, but unfortunately it does not. So Vermont still has the strongest anti-air. But overall, for the playstyle, it's like 50-50, right? If you're having to push into the enemy, you're probably not going to do as well. But if you're kiting or where enemies are pushing you, you're going to be having a field day with all of those torpedo hits you're going to be getting over and over and over again. And then if they turn broadside, you can use that AP to punish their broadside and get citadels on cruisers and get citadels on battleships as well. You'll be doing a ton of damage to the ship overall. That radar, I feel like it's kind of a bait. If you're kiting, you're not going to be using the radar as much because you have to consistently keep moving. You can't really sit there and let the destroyer kind of like, you can't let him rush into you to where you get in the radar range, right? Now, if you're pushing, now that's an entirely different story. So if you are forced to push and you have a destroyer that's in front of you, kind of helping you spot, you can kind of just W it down using your engine boost to keep up with your destroyer. And if you get spotted, there's a 1.8 kilometer difference in between your radar and your concealment. So if you wait maybe about 30 seconds from when you get spotted, maybe you'll catch their destroyer and then it'll be spotted for 30 seconds, which will allow your destroyer to do tons of damage and possibly even kill it. Now, you probably won't be able to hit it as much just due to the fact that the accuracy is a little bit trolly sometimes on this ship, but hopefully your destroyer is confident enough to where you're able to do that. Of course, it depends upon the day. Sometimes your teammates are geniuses and sometimes they need to go back to school, just depending upon the match. For aircraft carriers in general, just a general rule of thumb, and if you're dealing with submarines, just be more passive no matter what. Even if you know where the submarine is, just be more passive just in case, because you never know when he may just magically just go across the map and go after you. You never know, and it's just not going to be as much fun. This ship is not a tanking ship. It's not able to tank. It does not last very long. It is a glass cannon, so you need to treat it as that. If you try treating it like a tank ship like a Kremlin, you're not going to last long, and you're not going to have a very good time at all with Thor. But that's like the general play style for the Thor. Of course, I'm going to be going more into it, but let's talk about ways to counter the Thor. One of the most important ways to counter the Thor is by spotting it and keeping it spotted. So if you're in a destroyer or a cruiser, you can just keep it spotted. If you are in a battleship, make sure to use AP on it. Aim for that superstructure or the casemate that I was talking about. As you can see, like you can see on the side there of the torpedoes. If you aim for that area, you'll do a lot of damage there as well. And if it shows broadside, just aim right at that citadel. You'll possibly get a citadel or just get pen damage. It's just not a very, like, it's tanky, but it doesn't have a lot of HP, so you can just do a lot of damage to it over time. In heavy cruisers, you can use AP on that broadside. You'll do tons of damage as well. Aim for the upper deck and the superstructure, and you do really well with that. Same with battle cruisers, just use AP. For light cruisers and destroyers, use more HE to do fire starting on that superstructure, and you'll do really good as well. Torpedoes, torpedoes do really well against the Thor, so you'll be able to counter it pretty well. So yeah, just have fun torpedoing it as well. But just got to remember that it does have a 10-kilometer radar. Now, if you do get radar by the Thor, general thumb is just sit aft to it to where you're just running away from it. Don't wiggle. You can wiggle a little bit, but don't wiggle too much, because if you wiggle too much and show too much of your broadside, you'll take a lot of damage from the salvo. So do be careful of that. That's like one thing I see a lot of people doing is they'll get radar and they'll panic and they'll show broadside and they just take a giant chunk from their ship. That's a really common mistake that I see from when people get radar. They'll just panic. They'll be kiting away and then they'll try to get a torpedo off while they're still being radared, and they just take tons of damage. So definitely be careful of that when you are fighting against the Thor. Now, in this particular match, you'll be seeing that, as you've been seeing earlier and during this one, you'll be seeing that I'm having to rotate myself a lot, where I'm having to switch my guns off of one side and the other over and over again, right? And that is a big thing that you have to learn, is to keep your guns on one side where you're able to get your torpedoes off still, where you keep your guns off of starboard, right? So in this particular match, where, like, say I have my guns pointed off of my right side of my ship, my starboard side, if I want to launch my torpedoes off the left side, of course I have to look left, right? So what you can do is that you can free look. So you can hold right click on your mouse, hold that down, keep looking starboard, and then have it turn your ship left to where you have your angle for your torps, and then let go of free look and then turn your camera to where you can get your torpedoes off. Quickly get the torpedoes off and then switch your aim right back to the right side, and your turrets will still be locked looking off of the right side. They'll be turned only a little bit. That's like a little trick you can do, is using free look so that you're able to keep your guns put at one side, because that's something that a lot of people make the mistake of, and it just puts your guns out of the fight where you're not doing as much damage. It's just really, really painful. Also, throughout the rest of this match, you'll be seeing I'll be fighting a Bremen, right? And we all know how painful it is to fight a Bremen, and you can just tell that this is why I was saying this ship just cannot tank very well, is that Bremen just kicks my butt anytime I open up. So I have to try using my torpedoes to try to mess with them, but at the same time, that aircraft carrier is also over there. So I'm trying to use my stealth, use my maneuverability to kind of move along his side there to do torpedoes along with the destroyer that's there as well. But it's just a very painful match, and I wanted to showcase kind of the weaknesses of the ship as well as its strengths. It does do very well when people are pushing into it, but when it has to push into something like a kiting cruiser, it's just not going to do very well, as well as if you're dealing with a CV as well. The CV and the Bremen are a very painful combination to get, as well as I'm dealing with an ocean that has infinite rechargeable planes. So that also is extremely painful, and it is going to get me killed in the end of this match, unfortunately. But I wanted to showcase both a match where I show like when you're pushing and then when you're kiting, when your main goal is just to kite. Because I really wanted to do heavy damage to that main, but that Bremen and that consistent CV threat really just made it where I couldn't really move in, right? I had to stay back. And the destroyer that was with me did an amazing job, by the way. Really props to him. He could have left me at any time, but he stayed near me watching out for torpedoes, trying to launch torpedoes at the Bremen and the main. That destroyer player, he definitely deserved a comp, and I gave him one at the end. But he did an amazing job, and I was very, happy that I had a decent destroyer player. Because if he wasn't out there spotting that Bremen like he was, or the main, or putting pressure on that other destroyer as well, I wouldn't have lived that long at all. So it's really important to try to have, like, I made sure I wasn't too far away from the destroyer so that he knew that I wasn't just going to leave him. And as well as I kept myself far enough away where I wasn't going to get farmed. Because you can see where I try to move up to be able to try to do torpedoes off, or I try to do torpedoes at the main, and I got spotted by either the CV or the DD, and that Bremen just instantly caught me on fire and did massive damage to me every time. And it was just over and over and over and over again. In the end of this match, the only thing that was really keeping me alive was the fact that the aircraft carrier really wasn't hunting me down. But in the end, with most of his team dead, I inevitably got hunted by him, and then I was dead. So, it was quite unfortunate, but there was only so much I could really do. The aircraft carrier was on side that map, and I couldn't just kite off, because if I did, that would allow the Bremen to walk the flank, which he really wanted to do. But with me being there and the YY, it put a lot of pressure on him not to be able to move down the flank. So, in the end, yeah, it was kind of rough, but I still did good in the match. I got second on the team, 2100 base XP, which is really decent. So overall, I was happy with my performance, but there were some mistakes that I made where I wasn't putting my guns off of one side or the other, so I was doing a lot of mistakes with that. That's one thing to know in this match. So that's why I was telling you guys, make sure that don't do my mistake in this match. Make sure you have your guns off of one side and just use your free look to be able to look around, because if you are having to turn your guns over and over again, you're just not going to be able to shoot as much. So that was one common mistake in this match. For sure, hope you guys can learn from that. All right, so it's time to show the armor and the build that I run on the Thor. So this is the armor of the Thor, like I said earlier, 32mm bow, 40mm deck, and as you can see right here, is the water level citadel. As you can see here, this is what the Thor looks like in port. This is not a special camo to the Thor, it's just a random camo that I put on that looked nice. So I want you guys to take a look at that. But that is the Thor itself. It does look very nice, by the way. Now, this is the case barrier I was talking about here on the torpedo tubes where it's bent in. This bent in area is a giant AP shell catcher. So if you're showing too much side, it will catch shells. You can see here, you're angled here, they can do here, or they're angled back, they'll go there. So do be careful of that. The turrets themselves have 380mm of armor. They can be knocked out, so be careful of that as well. And the citadel protection is 350 there. So if you're showing broadside, prepare to be slapped. Now, for the Thor build itself, I've come to the conclusion that it's best to build for guns and torpedoes, right? So for first slot, it's going to be main armament. Second is going to be DCP to reduce your fire chance. It's only 20%, so it's 36 seconds, and a lot of the time you're only going to get 2 salvos in no matter what, so it's not really worth to build into radar. That's why I didn't build into it. I just built into reducing my fire chance. Third slot's going to be aiming systems, because imagine your aim, how bad it is if you don't, and it's already bad enough as it is, so just take that. If you don't take this, you're probably not going to hit anything. Fourth slot is going to be up to you. I tried doing steering gears. I didn't like it that much. I like propulsion a lot better. Even with the engine boost active, it doesn't help the acceleration all that much, so I prefer to just do propulsion. The fifth slot's going to be concealment. And then for sixth slot, it's going to be torpedo tubes. I know that's going to be a hot take there, but the reason why is because you're going to be using your torpedo tubes a lot. And with a 25-second reload, I feel like that's decent enough as a reload as it is. Now, if you don't want to take torpedo tubes, you can do reload for the guns yourself if you want to do that. But something to note is that when you are turning broadside, like when you're turning, doing a full turn, the turrets cannot keep up with you when you have the main battery reload. If you don't have the main battery reload here and you have the torpedo tubes, it can keep up with the turn. So that's why I also take torpedo tubes, is so that my turrets can actually keep up when I'm doing my turn. Because if not, you're going to be doing full turns and you're not going to be able to shoot anything, which I had a lot of issues with in some of those matches. For the commander build itself, all right, so this is the build here. Pretty basic battleship build. I did preventative maintenance, then I did Brist for the speed, then I did next. You can either do adrenaline rush or improved repair party first, depends upon your preference. I personally would want to do adrenaline rush first so that I can get higher DPM for all of my armaments. Then I would then do fire prevention to reduce the number of fires that are on you and make it where you're less likely to catch on fire. After that, I would then do concealment, since the concealment is very important on this ship. And then after that, I would then do emergency repair expert. And then the final one would be sort of improved repair party. So if you want me to do like a 10-point build, right? So let me just showcase this real quick. So 10-point build, it would be here. It would be this. This is your 10-point build. Your 14-point build would be this. Your 18-point build would then be this. And your 21-point build would be that. And that is the build for the Thor. So how to get the Thor. Now, the Thor is going to be available for early access starting in January. So as of January 14th for NA, and then January 15th for Asia and EU servers. You'll be able to get this during then for money. I don't know how much, but it's probably going to be a lot of money. Probably 100 or a couple hundred at least. And that also includes some of the tech tree and a premium for the Thor line and Thor event itself. Now, there are some free ships you're able to get from the event itself, and I'll be covering all of that, as well as the new puzzle collection that's going on, as well as the free loot box distribution thing that's going to be going on for everything that's going on for the leaderboards and everything like that. I'll be talking about all that on Wednesday when the patch video does go live. So whenever my patch video goes live, or patch goes live on that day, I'll be covering all of that then. I'll be doing a separate video on the actual Thor line itself, talking about each of the ships and talking about how easy it is to grind or not so easy. And then I'll be talking about the premium ship as well, the Turget. I'll be talking about that ship as well. But there's a lot of free stuff coming in this patch. Very excited for it. And overall, I think the Thor is a good addition. In a division, it could definitely be seen as really deadly, using that radar, using that someone can smoke it up, allow it to move more aggressively for its radar. But it's just going to be 50-50. It has good anti-air. It does okay. Like, I don't think it's a bad ship. I also don't think it's OP. So it's a good balance there. But overall, I like the ship. It's going to be fun to play. It's going to have some good memes out of it. You'll probably see some people yellowing it with those torpedoes. But overall, I think it's a good ship. I don't think it's broken. I don't think it's bad. But that's my review on the Thor. Now, if you like these sort of videos and you like this type of review, please make sure to write down in the comments that you do. This is the first time I've done a long form review like this. So I would really like your guys' feedback, like everything. The thumbnail, what topics I talked about, the title, the description, the timestamps. I want information on everything so that I can, work on that with me and my editor on what it's going to be doing. And also, if I covered everything that was important in the review, I made sure to talk about the strengths and weaknesses. I talked about all the stats, and if they're good or bad, not going into too much detail. I made sure to show the armor scheme, and then I made sure to talk about how good the ship is or bad, and what its play style and how to counter it. So overall, I think I did a good job in this review, but I'm always wanting to learn and do better. So please let me know in the comments. And thank you guys again for all your support. It is a pretty rough time for me. Again, so you guys know I lost my dad last year. And then, yeah, I lost my second dad this year. And that doesn't mean my two dads were married. There was someone that was like he was a second father figure to me. And I've known him my entire life, and he just passed away. So I'm going through a very rough time with that as well. So, yay. But I'll do my best with that. So thank you guys again for all your support. I do appreciate you all. And I will see you guys in the next video. Deuces!